lo 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 lo. I'm gonna sing myself a song. No, I'm not, because I'm not very good at singing songs, so I'm not gonna do any singing, no. Okay, so just setting up, making sure my live stream is working correctly. Yes, we are going to talk about the Bard again. More Bard videos. People asked for them, so we're going to do them. All Bard parties, sometimes more dangerous than they seem. Yes. The Bard party. Completely. All Bards. Terrifying. Terrifying. Multi-classed Bards. Okay, so, look, you will find the start time down in the description. Let me know if there's any problem with the sound or the video before I get started. Now, for those of you who have not been part of my live streams before, normally what I do is I present everything first and then I open it up for questions and answers, and today is no different. That's exactly what I'm going to do, following the same format that I've been using for quite a long time now. So sit back and relax, and you can ask your questions, give your feedback, and say hi to me at the end of this. Okay, we are going to get started, okay? Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Wheeler, and today I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5e, and we're going to talk about bards, not an entire party full of bards. We're just going to talk about one feature of the bard class, and that is font of inspiration. I know what you're thinking. Font of inspiration, Fred, is like 2 sentences. Why do we need to cover it? Well, because that's what this whole series is all about, but also too there are a couple of things I wanted to point out which I know occasionally people forget. So if you have a look at page 54 of the Player's Handbook, you'll find the information on font of inspiration. So from the book, this is what it says. Beginning when you reach 5th level, you regain all of your expended uses of bardic inspiration when you finish a short rest or a long rest. Now, in the past, you needed to complete a long rest to get all of your bardic inspirations back. So if you've used any of your bardic inspiration, you get them all back if you get a short rest in, which is a big deal because bardic inspiration is pretty powerful as a feature. So what I wanted to do is talk briefly about why it's so impressive and why you should be making sure you're using that bardic inspiration every chance you get. Because the reality is, it's a really good feature, and it's not really something that you should sort of forget about. Don't forget about it. So the first thing I did notice is I looked on the internet to see if there was any information on bardic inspiration and sage advice. Were there any outstanding questions that people tended to have? And as it happens, no, there really aren't any outstanding questions that people have. There's really no information on sage advice for font of inspiration, which is a good sign. That means that most people understand what's going on. So you don't need to hoard your bardic inspiration anymore for that long rest. Don't hoard it. Use it up. Make sure you use it. Make sure you use your bardic inspiration before you get the short rest in. Pump up that charisma score and modifier, because if the score goes up, you should also be increasing your modifier on your charisma, and that is what is going to determine how many uses of bardic inspiration you will get. So any chance you get to pump up charisma, do that, because that means you get to use bardic inspiration more, and because of the combination of font of inspiration, you're going to get even more uses of that particular feature. So what I was going to do is just quickly grab the map and the dice and sort of demonstrate briefly and give you a sort of 3 examples that I thought would be useful. Now, if you'll notice, I pulled up the chart for the Bard, and at 5th level, okay, level 5, your font of inspiration comes into play. But you'll also notice that bardic inspiration changes. It's no longer a 6-sided dice or D6. It's now an 8-sided dice or D8. So in other words, the average that you will roll on that dice is going to be higher. So in other words, it's even more powerful than it was before. Hence why it's so important to use it up. Now, when you're building your character, you're probably going to find that most characters that are playing a bard will have a 16 in their charisma modifier, which means which means their modifier is a +3. So if you've got a 16 in your score, you get a +3. Should really be the lowest score you get, particularly at level 5. If you've increased your charisma, chances are you'll have an 18 in charisma and a +4 in your charisma modifier, which is all good. That means more uses of your bardic inspiration. So that means on average most combats and most dungeon masters, when they run their adventures, are going to run maybe between 3 and 4 encounters, combat encounters, or just straight out encounters, which means you really should be using your bardic inspiration at least every single encounter, so that by the time you have finished your 3rd or 4th encounter, you get to have your short rest, hopefully, and then you get all of your bardic inspiration back. So don't hoard it. Okay, at this point you should have more than enough to last you to the next rest, so don't hoard it. So I'm going to use the King's Road. I've got my adventuring party here, I've got my bard here, and I have simply picked the key core classes. So I've got here a Barbarian or Fighter, I've got a Cleric, I've got a Wizard, and I've got a Rogue. And I'm going to pick on only 3 for today. And we're going to deal with how you can use your bardic inspiration and why you might do so. Okay, remember 3 or 4 encounters, and then you're probably going to get to have a short rest. So don't hoard it. So let's start off with the Cleric. Now, one of the things about a Cleric is they're usually going to be wearing heavy armor. So they will have disadvantage when they're making a stealth check, which is a big pain, honestly. For anybody who has played the game and you're making a stealth check, because you're often making stealth checks, you really want to have another dice there, okay, that's going to give you the lowest score. That's really what you want. It's like disadvantage on any check. No, not really. So, disadvantage, rolling 2 dice, taking the lowest result when you're making your stealth check. But if you know that your Cleric is going to be having to make a stealth check, maybe you're moving up to a location where there's a lair or a castle or a hideout for your baddie, then make sure you give them that bardic inspiration. It's no longer that 6-sided dice, forget about that, it's now an 8-sided dice. So they get to roll that as well. They might still have disadvantage, but that means on average they're looking at between a 4 and a 5 they get to add on to whatever is the lowest score on those 2 dice when you're making that stealth check. So for my Cleric here, it's not a very good modifier for their stealth. It's pretty awful. I think it's something in the range of like a -2 for our Cleric with the heavy armor and disadvantage. So I roll my dice. So I get a 3, I get an 8 on my 8-sided dice, so I have to take the lowest result, so the big number goes away. That's a 4 minus 1, that's like a 3, so 4 minus 1 is 3, but I rolled 7. I rolled a 7 on the inspiration dice, because they can choose to use it. They've got 10 minutes to use it, okay? So as long as you're building up and you've timed it right, that means I no longer have 3, I have 10. Now, if you have a beast around or creature, your Dungeon Master is probably going to have the use of passive perception. They're going to use passive perception. They probably won't use an active check, but they might, but it doesn't matter. For this situation, I have an air elemental that has been flying around here. They don't know about it. The party is moving through this area, up to a lair, or through this location. They figure it's quite dangerous. This is a good time to use it. Bardic Inspiration won't help with a stealth check for your Cleric if you're traveling over a long period of time from one place to another, because you're dealing with hours and Bardic Inspiration only lasts for 10 minutes. But I use it, I apply it, that's a 10. Now the passive perception of our air elemental is 10, and our Cleric got 10. But you can see the point. I almost passed that. It was almost possible for the Cleric to have moved through that area, been unseen if they've used cover, and unheard and unsmelt. So that's why it's so useful. It literally doubled what we had there. So that is for our Cleric. What about if we have a Barbarian getting into combat? So the Barbarian winds up in combat and they have to make some attacks. Okay, so we roll our dice, we make our attack with our great axe, and the worst thing that could happen, I rolled a 13 plus whatever the modifier would be, and in this case it's probably like a +6 for a character who's about level 5, maybe a +7, okay? But what if I roll a 4? All right, a 4 is pretty low, and I add a +6 to that, that's only 10. But if I have Bardic Inspiration, which you can use on an attack roll, not just an ability check or a skill check, like our stealth check, roll that, will that make the difference? I was really, really close. The armor class of our air elemental is a 15, okay? So if I'm adding a 6 or 7 to this, so say a 6, that's 10, that's 14, it was just shy. Okay, on average, you're going to roll about a 4 or a 5 on an 8-sided dice. Okay, what about our last example? What happens if the air elemental decides to move through the party, which it can? It's got a thing called whirlwind, and it requires a strength saving throw to resist being hurled out of the way and taking damage. So this is going to come through this location. Who's likely to suffer the most at the hands of the air elemental? Who's got to make a strength saving throw? Well, it's going to probably be the wizard. It's probably the wizard. So this is a good time to give them, as the bard, you do your thing. You say, look, I'm going to give you Bardic Inspiration to my wizard, and they can use it at any time they like. I would suggest using it for a saving throw, because the air elemental might come through and try to knock you out of the way. So when you're making your saving throw, you roll your dice, right? I don't have disadvantage. I rolled an 8, and if I need it to be a little bit higher, because it's not quite high enough, because strength, usually your wizard's only going to have, it's either going to be a minus, or it might even be just a flat 0. In this case, let's say it's a flat 0. I roll my inspiration dice, so I get 8 plus 0 is 8, plus a 5. Okay, what's the grand total of that? That's 13. Now the strength saving throw for the whirlwind ability for an air elemental is a DC 13 strength saving throw. So that means you actually succeeded as the wizard, because your bard gave you inspiration. So don't hoard your inspiration. You have font of inspiration, okay? Your bardic inspiration is really, really important. Make sure you allocate it. Be selective when you do so. Remember that 10 minutes. And that's really all I wanted to say about bardic inspiration for today. So if you found this video helpful or informative, please share and like the video. Consider subscribing to my channel if you like this sort of content, because I often do it live, and also I do have edited videos. Hit the bell button to be notified when I go live and when I publish new videos. If you want to support me, you did so by watching this video. I have hundreds more videos for players and dungeon masters, and there is a series on the bard for those of you who are interested in the bard rather than something else. Now, I don't do Patreon, but down in the description you'll find affiliate links to the book depository and Amazon, where you can buy stuff online. I get a small commission, and that helps support the channel so I can keep buying equipment and doing this sort of thing. This is your opportunity now in the live chat to ask questions, give feedback, or just say hi to me. I am open to anything. And for those of you who are not part of the live chat or the live stream, you can use the comments section. That's what YouTube put it there for. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. I'm not gone. For those of you who want to ask questions, whether that be a player question or a dungeon master question, I am hanging around. I will answer what questions I can. I'm just switching back over to my battle mat and dice, because I think that'll probably be more useful to people. I can't point it at my face, unfortunately, because I don't have two webcams going at the same time. Okay, hi dear Jesus, how's it going? Walter, how's it going? Hello. You found this helpful, Walter? Good. Were there any questions that you might have, Walter, that I could answer while I'm still here? I have played a bard at low level myself, and I have a friend who's playing a bard, and he loves to explain to me all of the bits and pieces to the bard, whether I want to hear about it or not. So, dear Jesus, if there are 5 bards in the party, does the inspiration stack? Okay, so no, you can't stack. I did a video on bardic inspiration. There's a live stream and an edited version. You can't stack your bardic inspiration dice. on the same roll. I know what you're saying. You're like, if there's five, if there's 5 bards in the party and they all give me bardic inspiration, can I then just load up my one dice roll so I get a really high score to negate the really bad roll I got on my 20-sided dice because I rolled a 1 or I rolled a 2 or a 3? No, it's not going to work that way. Okay, unfortunately not. Good try though. Good try. Dear. There's always somebody at the table who asks that question. What you've got to understand about things stacking is, as a general rule, if the feature has got the same name, you can't stack it. Almost always the case with regard to spells and class features. Usually, if it's got the same name, you can't stack it on top of each other. Is there any other questions? For those of you who did show up, thank you very much. Yep. What do we got here, Walter? No question, just admiring your tutorial. Was watching the one from 2 days ago when seeing this live one. Ah, okay. Which one were you watching 2 days ago? That would be what? 2 days. Which one would that be? Oh, was that the core rules, the Dungeons and Dragons 5e core rules, Walter? If that's the one you're talking about, let me know. The only other one I can think of was the one on, I was crafting an air elemental. I was trying to finish off my air elemental. There was the core rules and the air elemental. That's the only ones I can think of. I'm hoping that people really found the core rules video helpful because in about a month's time, the players are going to get another combat tutorial. I know I said I would never do them again, but I will absolutely do another combat tutorial about a month from now for the players. What's that, dear Jesus? Second question. If the bard loses their musical instrument, is there a penalty to them? I feel like that's kind of rough. Now, one of the things with bardic inspiration, just give me a second so I can grab the book, because I would like to refer to the book since that seems to be a good way to go. If you have a look at your bardic inspiration and how bardic inspiration works, starting on page 53, okay, you can inspire others through stirring words or music. So here's the thing. Whether you're playing a musical instrument or singing, it doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter if you don't have your musical instrument. There's not going to need to be a penalty. So you can sing, you can play a musical instrument, you can say something that's inspiring. That's the concept behind bardic inspiration. So no, you don't need to worry about having that musical instrument. Your musical instrument might be your spell focus, but bardic inspiration is not a spell. Okay, I know I've answered that question before. Bardic inspiration is a class feature, it is not a spell. Hopefully, dear Jesus, that answered your question. Okay, David. Hello, David. That's why I always choose voice as one of my instruments. Yeah, well, you don't even have to worry about choosing it. It just states stirring words or music. There's nothing here that says that you have to have a spell focus or a musical instrument to use bardic inspiration. Dear Jesus, laugh out loud. Until you get silence and cast on you. Well, that's a bit different. Now, if you can't actually hear what somebody's saying, how can you be inspired? But that's often the case with spells, and it can apply to a feature like bardic inspiration. Absolutely. David's going, duh. Well, you know, I think it's actually good to ask these questions because otherwise you go along not being too sure about what's going to happen next. Okay, Walter, what do you got here? Yes, the core rules, sorry. Wi-Fi went out. No problem, Walter. Yep, so if you liked the core rules for Dungeons & Dragons 5e, that video I did for the players 2 days ago or 2 or 3 days ago, there is going to be, in about a month's time, I'll do a Dungeons & Dragons 5e combat tutorial, and hopefully my brain does not explode. It's quite possible it could. What's that, David? 07. I'm not sure what 07 means. 07. I'm lost. it's got to be like a an icon of some kind, right? Little codes and on the internet. I'm constantly having to look things up. Yeah, 07. Oh, it's a salutation. Ah, 07. Well, thank you, David, and thank you, dear Jesus, and thank you, dear Jesus, for explaining it to me, because I could not figure out what was going on. Okay, so for those of you who have showed up for some questions and answers around the Bard or anything else, hopefully I've answered the questions you need. Please don't forget to use your Bardic Inspiration. Once you've got Font of Inspiration, do not hoard it. What's that, Walter? Halfway through, we'll finish when I leave here. Thank you for these videos. You are welcome, Walter. It's always nice when people say that they found they got something out of it. Hence why, those are the reasons why I keep coming back. Okay, I'm going to head off, so everybody have a good night, good day, good afternoon, good morning, whatever it is in your country. Look after your family, look after yourself. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. And I will see you in the next video, which will probably be about 2 days from now as a live stream. Thank you for everybody who showed up.